Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint a greeting card, and I've got mine taped down to a piece of mat board here already. It's just a Strathmore greeting card, and we're going to use some Turner watercolors and some Mimic brushes. And this video is brought to you by jerrysartorama.com. You can find the supplies that I am using on their website, and they're having a really big sale, like their back to school sale right now. So check out the Turner watercolors. They have the 18 color set at a really great price. They also have a try it set of the Mimic brushes that have like 4 or 5 different brushes. It's a little bit cheaper than the larger set that I have. So if you've been on the fence about these, I highly recommend you give them a try. I've been using them for a couple of years and they're my favorites, and they are completely vegan. So you don't have to worry about any fur in your brushes that, you know, if you don't want to. So what we're going to do is we're going to sketch on with a black waterproof pen. I'm using a Pitt pen. You can use whatever you want. When I was doing this, I was actually just kind of doodling around, and I'm not even sure what paper this is. I think it's just Bristol cardstock, and I was using a pen that my sister got me for my birthday, and it turns out that it smeared with water, but it was just kind of fun to play around with this design, so I thought I would do it again, but use a waterproof pen and do this for a tutorial. You can draw whatever kind of flower you like, but I'm going to do a poppy, probably mainly because I'm pretty familiar with how poppies look. So I'm going to start with a circle and put a dot in the middle of the circle, and then I'm going to draw some like pie slices out from there. And this can be a little whimsical. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Then I'm going to put just some little wispy curved, almost like eyelashes going around from this circle. Okay, see, drawing a circle like a beach ball, that's not hard. Drawing eyelashes, that's not hard. I'll zoom in a little bit more even. That could be a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, so we've got our beach ball with eyelashes. And now I am going to draw a petal. So I'm making a line that I'm giving it kind of like a ruffly edge. And bringing it back down to the center. That's not hard, is it? We're going to do that again. We're going to put one over here. Nice ruffly edge. And bring it back to the middle. We are going to do another one starting here. Let it tuck behind that one. I like to make lots of ruffles. I think ruffles are really pretty. And I'm just going to bring that one down a little bit. I don't want to bring it all the way down yet. And I'm going to tuck one in front of it. And bring it down behind that guy. We'll have another one start off behind him. And let's see, that's probably pretty good. We've got quite a few little petals that going on there. Let's make a stem. And I'm just going to tip it up and look at it. You know what? I think I want one more petal. I think I'm going to do one just kind of peeking out from behind there. There, I think I like that. So you can be kind of fun and whimsical with your design. I'm going to make it a bud kind of coming up, hiding behind the edge of the flower. And poking out over here. You can use different size pens too. Maybe I'll do another bud. So then we'll have 3 things. I always like poppy buds because they remind me of snakes. Like this is a snake charmer. I feel like a snake charmer when I'm drawing these. I'll maybe do another one, just a little bit of one. Little poppy snake babies. Okay, so now we've got this done. We can go ahead and put more detail on now, or we could do a wash of color and put more detail on later. That's completely up to you. What I think I also want to do while I'm at it is make a border, and I can just go right along the edge of my tape. Excuse me. And I'm going to stop when I get to a portion of my drawing. I think that will just look kind of cool if I do that. And that tape just is thick enough, whoops, that it can make it easy to trace it as I as I go onto the masking tape. But that's alright, because if you just, you know, make a mess on the masking tape, it doesn't matter. It's not going to harm your drawing. Okay, now if you want to doodle any designs in the background, you totally can. I think I'm just going to hit this with my heat tool really quick, because sometimes on watercolor paper, because of the sizing that's on the paper, fine liners don't like to dry. So we're just going to go ahead and give that a dry. And now we're going to do some simple washes of color. Okay, so I'm going to use my number 8 round. I am going to grab some, and you can go with more of a pinky poppy, or you can go with a more bright red poppy. That's completely up to you. I'm going to go with more of like a rose red. Now that color is not in the 18 color set, but I do recommend adding it because the cool red that's in that 18 color set is a Mayan red, and it's very weak. The warm reds are gorgeous, but that Mayan red is just so weak. I'm going to go ahead and wet the entire poppy area. Whoops, I forgot to draw the other little squigglies around there, but that's all right. We can do that later. Just go ahead and wet these petals. I'm not going to wet entirely up to them. I'll leave like a little rim around the center area there because I'll need to put some more color there later. And I'm going to grab my color and just kind of add it in and let it flow. I like the flow of the Turner watercolors. It has more flow than the Lucas watercolors, in case you're wondering. Those tend to be, the Lucas and the Turner are the best deals at Jerry's. If you're shopping for watercolors there, they're both professional paints, but it just depends on what you're after. If I'm looking for more like a vintage look for my artwork, I'll go with the Lucas colors, the Lucas 1862 professional watercolors. But if I'm going for more of a modern, vibrant look, I reach for the Turners because they're just a little bit more vibrant as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people compare the Turners to Holbein. I don't see, I mean, I guess there's some similarities, just like there are similarities between all watercolors. But I find the Turners to be a little bit more transparent than the Holbein. And I find the Turners to flow a little bit more. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit more. There we go. I just want to make sure you can see everything. This is a 5x7 card. I get my watercolor cards in the 100 packs because I go through them. And I really, I enjoy doing quick little watercolor sketches. And this is a great way to warm up. Okay, so I just want to get like kind of an overall color there. I'm not gonna, I want it to be kind of patchy, so I'm not gonna like try to smooth it out. In fact, if yours is too smooth, I would just go in with some color and I would just add some color here and there, so you don't have too smooth of a look. Now I'm also going to mix up a little bit of purple. I'm going to take some ultramarine and mix it right in there. Now I didn't pre-spray my watercolors. It probably would have been a good idea because I haven't used this particular palette in a couple weeks, but you can see that the colors do reactivate really well. Since I know I'm going to want a little bit of a purple hue underneath the little stamens in here, I'm just dabbing in some purple and letting it spread. I'm keeping it pretty close to the center of the flower so that way it won't spread out too much, and that'll help me give it that kind of fuzzy look in the center that I want. And I'm going to leave that be. Now I'm going to grab some sap green. You can use sap or olive. It's totally up to you. It's whatever you prefer. Actually, I might go for olive. Isn't that pretty? And you can pre-wet the buds if you want to, or you can just go right in and paint them. Ah, oh, this color. I really like these paints. I really think they're one of the best deals going as far as watercolors, especially right now while they're on sale. And, you know, I recommend the 18 color set just because you get so many colors for like around $25 right now on sale. And that way you can see what you like. I mean, there are a few colors that I wouldn't recommend buying on their own, like the Mayan colors. I just find their Mayan colors to be really weak, but those are the only qualms that I have with their set. Like, I prefer their olive green to their sap green. Their sap green is super vibrant, which is nice. You can always just add a little bit of, like, one of your warmer reds or your burnt sienna to it or something to tone it down a little bit. But, you know, but all in all, I find that to be a really nice set to start off and see what you think. Just definitely order a tube of like rose red to go with it, just to round out your palette a little bit more. And then you can decide what you want in like the larger tubes. They also have sets with larger tubes, but I think if you've never tried the line of paints before, I would go with the smaller set and see if you like them before you invest in like a larger set. Now, because I've already used ultramarine blue, I'm going to use that with my green to get kind of like a shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and add that anywhere I would want a little bit of darker color on my flowers, like on the bottom parts of the bud, maybe on the sky and behind. I do have a coupon code in the video description to give you some money off non-sale items at Jerry's and also get you free shipping. So on, I think it's orders over $49. So check that out. If you're going to make an order, save you a little bit more money anyway. Okay, now if you want to brighten it up a little bit, you can also add a yellow. I think I'll go with this. I think this is Permanent Yellow Light or Hansa Yellow Light. It's the same pigment as Hansa Yellow Light, I believe. I don't have my pigment chart here. I just have my hand-painted swatch chart. I used to have these in a different tin, but I would just take them out as I was using them. But I didn't really like that. I wanted them in a more of a permanent tin because I use them so often. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to also do a little green in the center. I think that purple's probably dry enough that I can do that. So I'm going to take some of that olive green, mix it in with some of that yellow, so I can stay with the same colors. I don't like to grab new colors. I'm just going to put that right in there right now. And then we're going to give this a quick little dry down. A little blue to shadow it. Okay, so we got to let this dry, and then we are going to do a little bit more pen work, and we're also going to put a background in. All right, our background is dry, and one thing you can do after it's cooled down from the heat tool, just to double check, is you can touch it with the back of your palm, back of your hand. If it feels cool to the touch, it's still a little damp, but if it feels room temperature, then it's dry. And again, something I wanted to mention about this paper, it is a wood pulp paper, so it will be a little more prone to blossoming and giving you kind of like effects like cauliflowers and blooms, which I also think is part of the fun with these quick watercolor cards. So what I'm doing is just a little more pen work. I'm putting some hairs on the stems of the flower and bud because they have very fuzzy stems, and I just want to get that little bit of texture in there. You don't have to do too much, but I just like to have a little bit of the that outline in there. Just little flicks. So you just kind of like, hopefully you can see that, just little hairy lines. And then I can also add a little bit of shading, a little bit of hatching. Like I can make it a little bit more hairy and dense where the flower and the stem is meeting, because the flower would probably give it a little bit more shadow, and also on the sky and behind I can do a little bit more, so he is pushed back a little bit with the shadow. You can get the ribs on the buds, where it would kind of open up. The sepals, maybe, is that what it's called? And you can spend more time on this. I'm just trying to give you a kind of Cliff Notes version. You can take as much time as you want when you do yours. Seriously, it's painting, it's enjoyment. Take your time and enjoy yourself. All right, so something I thought was kind of fun with this is to do a little bit of a stylized approach. So first I'm going to add my area where we're going to have the kind of stamens here. So I'm just kind of giving a scribbly border there. And I'm also stippling and adding little scribbles inside that border, outside of the eyelashes, the little eyelashes I told you to draw. I'm just going to add dots and scribbles to give us some texture. And you can put more eyelashes on there if you want. just going to re-outline that. There we go. That's all I want to do to the center. Now, I love those oriental poppies that have those like dark splotches in the petals, so I want to do that. Now, I'm not looking at a reference photo. I've drawn many poppies in my day. In fact, you're probably like, oh, Lindsay, seriously? Another poppy video on your channel? But I like poppies. I don't know why. Isn't it fun to draw? It's fun to paint. They're so pretty. So I'm just going to put these little hatching lines, and hatching is simply when you're putting a bunch of lines next to each other. When you cross over them, that's called cross hatching. We're not going to do any cross hatching here. We're just hatching. And of course, if you don't like this, then you don't have to do it. That's a great thing about art. You can do what you want to do on your painting because it's your painting. Okay, I know it looks probably really dark right now, but remember, we just have one wash on here. We just have our background wash. Now, something else that I like to do is add some wrinkles and dimension, but this time I want it to kind of have a stylized look. So this is a little different than the other poppies that I've done on my channel. Instead of it looking like a really kind of natural looking poppy, I want it to have a little stylized look. So I'm taking these wrinkle lines and bringing them all the way down the petal. You don't have to do this. If you don't like the look of that, then you can just extend them like a centimeter or something. Just like go leave them like that. You know, you can do them like that. But I just want this kind of stylized look, kind of like more like a like it's a textile design or something. And I'm also going to outline my edges. Now I'm just using one pen, and the trick to getting a variety of line widths from one pen, and usually your pens come in a pack of different sizes, so you don't have to, but the trick to getting a wider line with your pen is to go slower, and then the ink can feed out a little bit more before you move, and that's how you get a thicker line. So if all you have is a Sharpie, that's totally fine. A fine point Sharpie is going to work just fine for this. And don't worry about the fact that it looks a little sketchy right now. We are going to add some more color and give it like a really fun effect. Again, take your time with this. It's not a race. I know sometimes I go fast. I go fast because I'm excited to teach you, and I also go fast because I don't want to take up any more time of yours than I have to get the point across. I want you to be able to have time left over for your hobby. I want you to have time left over to try this. If you spend all your time watching videos and you don't get a chance to try the techniques, well, that's a bummer. Oh, that would be so frustrating. I just went back in because I made a double line there by mistake. I didn't like that very well. By all means, use different widths of pen if you have them and if you wish to. I like to keep it simple. That's something I've realized. Like, I find the more complex a project is and the more supplies I need to complete it, the less I enjoy doing it. I think that's probably why I've settled on watercolor as being my main painting medium. And I do enjoy oils, and I occasionally like to paint in acrylics. I like wash too, but that's very similar to watercolor. But because I just like the fact that it can be so simple, you don't have to have a ton of materials to do it. All right, we're going to continue on. I hope this isn't boring. You can skip ahead if you're like, yep, Lindsay, I get the point. You're drawing lines. You know, go ahead and skip ahead if you want to. There's also a gear at the bottom of the YouTube player, and if you click on that, you can speed up or slow down the player. So if I'm going too fast, you can slow it down. If I'm going too slow, you can speed it up. And it does affect the voice a little bit. So I don't sound too deranged. I do sound a little intoxicated if you have it on the slow speed, and I do sound a little chipmunky if you have it on the fast speed, but you can still make out what I'm saying, which is pretty good. You can have your lines have a little bit of a wiggle to them. It's harder if you have them really close together, so it just depends on what you like and how many ruffles you have on your edge. All right, so I'm going to give that a little time to dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to work on the background. So I'm just going to give my brush a good rinse, and I'm going to use that yellow because we've already used it. I'm mixing out some on my palette. I'm also going to pre-wet the background so it can flow a little bit. And I'm wetting right up to the tape. Now, I generally, when I'm doing this, I don't wet right up to the thing I'm going to be painting. I generally leave a gap, and then when I put my color in, I go right up to it, because then I can see where I am. Sometimes when I'm putting just water in, it's difficult to see exactly how close I've gotten to the edge. I just splashed onto my, I keep splashing. It's because I put my water in front of my painting. I don't want puddles, so if I get a puddle, what I'll do is I'll just try to like sop up that puddle and move that water elsewhere. And again, this is a cellulose paper, so it can tend to dry a little unevenly and give me cauliflower blooms, but I actually like that effect when I'm doing my cards, so you can use whatever paper you prefer. So I've wet not right up to everything, so make sure if you're looking to achieve a good border that you press your tape down well. If you don't have a waterproof pen, like you have your watercolors, but all you have is like a ballpoint pen or an office supply pen, you can do your drawing with pencil, do all of your painting first, and then go in at the end and outline over it with your whatever black pen you have. You don't have to have a waterproof pen for this, so don't let that be an obstacle to you. You can use a Bic. You can use whatever free pen the bank gave you last week when you went to go cash your paycheck. Use whatever you have. In fact, this was using a pen that wasn't waterproof, and I thought it actually turned out kind of fun, and then I just added some gouache over it. I was just playing with it. So, don't let what you have on hand be an obstacle. I will link down below exactly what I used if you want to get what I used or you want to compare. But never feel like you have to have exactly what I'm using to follow along and have fun. That's not what art's about. In fact, I think that substituting is a big part of the fun, because then you get to see what the supplies you already have will do. And if you need supplies, you know where to find them. I link them down below. It's always a dangerous day when the Jerry's Artorama sale catalog arrives in my mailbox. There's been quite a few little things in that catalog that's caught my eye. I'm trying to be good, but I think I'm going to order a black cutting mat because they have them on sale, and I think that my videos would film really good if I had a black background like that. I think that it would really make the colors pop a lot better, and it would tell the camera like what's white, what's black. I find sometimes like the camera tries to overcompensate, so that's on my wish list from their new sale catalog. And I think you can request a catalog from their website if you prefer to peruse a paper catalog. Oh, right. Oh, I like that. I think that it would be also pretty to put some splotches, and you don't have to do this. I know a lot of people like freak out when I spatter, and they're like, why did you spatter? Oh, it's ruined. You don't have to do it, guys. You do you. I like spatter. I'm doing spatter. If you spatter accidentally on the flower, just blot it off. Not a big deal. Just try to use the same colors you've already used, and you'll be fine. I'll do a little bit of that ultramarine blue since I've already used that too. Because, honestly, I was thinking it'd be really cool to do some stamping in the background, or if you had really neat handwriting, you could do like some like script doodles, or if you had like a stamp of like French script or something, it'd be really cool, which I'm sure I do downstairs in the hoard. But then I was like, well, a lot of people probably don't have that, and I didn't want somebody to feel like, oh, well, I can't do that. I don't have that tool. Making some of that purple color that I used. I want to spatter some of that too. Now, I will get some cauliflowers from this, but I like that. I think that texture will be really pretty. Okay, so just blot it off. If you get any on the flower where you don't want it, just blot. Just try not to blot the background. Just try to blot the flower area. I'm going to take that purple. I'm actually going to switch to a smaller brush now. I've got this number 2 Mimic. This was part of the, I think it's also in the cheaper set too. This was part of the value set. I'm actually thinking about getting the smaller set that's cheaper too, just so I could have, because I mainly use the rounds. The big ones are nice to have, but I mainly use the smaller rounds, so I think that might be nice to have, so I could have one downstairs in my office as well. All right, and I think I'm going to add some of that purple over the black liney hatching area. This is going to be such a pretty card. You could do this on a postcard too, and I get asked when I'm doing greeting cards and postcards if I do anything to protect them, to seal them while they're, to protect them in transit, especially if I'm doing a postcard. And, I typically don't. However, sometimes if I'm doing a postcard and I'm worried, it's like rainy season or something, like it's spring, what I'll do is I will rub it with a piece of canning wax, just paraffin wax, a white candle, whatever you have, just a clear piece of wax. And then I heat it with my heat tool. Or you can use a hairdryer, whatever you have that would heat it. And it works really well. And it gives you a waxy barrier. And then it can arrive at its destination safe and sound. So I'm doing here, I'm going to alternate. I'm just using that rose red on its own, and I'm alternating. So it's nothing that fancy, nothing that complicated. I recommend a smaller brush just so you don't end up getting too much paint in each of these little small channels. Be careful when you get near an edge. But remember how we thickened our lines when we were sketching? When we were outlining, we made that thicker line. That should give us just enough room so that we can get right in there without it bleeding. Because if the background's wet and we touch that background with our flower color, it will want to bleed. And I try to just kind of alternate it a little bit so that if I have petals on top of each other, then they're a little bit different. Now you could use this technique if you were doing like a petunia, like a striped petunia. That would be really pretty, because they do have kind of distinct stripes on them. But I think this is very zen. This is a very zen project. I was going to tape this right down to my table, but I'm glad I didn't, because it's so much easier to paint when you can move your painting around. And if you really like this technique and you want to do it on a larger painting, you're more than welcome to do that too. Now generally, if I was just going to keep this natural and I was shading, like I wasn't doing these stripes, what I would do is I would darken the like the ruffles that are in behind, like this one right here. This one looks like it's underneath, like it's underlapping. That looks like a puffy out petal, and this looks like a puffy in, I guess, wrinkle, not petal, wrinkle. So I would have this one darker, that one lighter. I would do that, and you might have, you wouldn't necessarily alternate dark light like I'm doing here. So that's how I would do that. But of course, I have so many poppy tutorials on my YouTube channel that I think I even have a whole playlist of poppy painting tutorials. So, if you prefer a different look, check out those tutorials and find one that you like better. I felt like doing something a little bit more modern and designy. So that's why I'm doing this. And this doesn't take a lot of paint either. So like if you didn't have watercolors, you had watercolor markers, you could totally scribble out your marker on a piece of plastic or a dinner plate or something, and you could paint along that way. Let's see, I think this one would be darker. This is a fun project. I'm taking my daughters back to school shopping today, so this is a nice little relaxing project for me to do before I do that. That is one thing that's always, I don't know, I always get stressed out during back to school shopping. It's always so busy, and there's so many people. Even I always go during the week too, instead of a weekend, and it still seems like it's always so busy. There's always so many people around and children, and I always find back to school shopping a little stressful. I remember back in the day, I could just go to Old Navy and JCPenney online, order everything, have, you know, have them try it on when I got in and just return what doesn't fit, and those were the days. But you can't do that when you got teenage daughters anymore. They gotta try everything on. But I'm going to try to find the joy in it, because I used to love back to school shopping when I was a kid, when I was a teenager especially. So I'm going to try, like this would be one that I would do light if I was doing a more natural effect. Yep, yeah, I should have found a shadow one first and put that in. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now I think I'll go into some green. We'll let that dry a little bit. Take a little ultramarine blue, my green, and just kind of do a little shading on the stems here. Nothing too major, just kind of give it a little bit of darkness on the undersides of everything. If you wanted to collage on this, I think collage would look really cool too. Like if you had some old, you know, sheet music, or you had some old like script, ledger script or something, ledger paper, gluing that on, maybe some washi tape. I would probably not do it on a postcard just because it would probably get torn off in the mail, but definitely would be really cute if you were doing, if you're going to do it on a greeting card in an envelope. Adding a little yellow to the top of this. You could also use gel pens to accent. All right, I'm going to give this another dry and we'll put our accents on and we'll be done. Okay, that's dry. So what we're going to do for a little bit of shading, underneath the petals where they overlap, we're going to take some of that rose red again. I'm just going to add a little bit of that mixed purple to it, which was ultramarine blue in the red, and some water. And so what I'm just going to do is, anywhere I think there would be a shadow, I'm going to go in and add a little shadow. So where petals, and make sure you've let your picture dry. I'm just going to go in and add a little bit of shadow there. And that's just going to help give it a little bit of, just a little bit more definition on the petals. Because you'd have a shadow next to like the stamen, because that's pretty textured and fluffy. Do a little bit more dark on that. Center area. Kind of reminds me of a carnival tent, how stripy it is. You don't have to have that much contrast if you don't like that. But this glaze will allow both the light and the dark to show through. Just try not to overwork it. If you overwork an area, that's going to lift up your paint underneath. Especially on this paper, because it has quite a bit of sizing on it. A little bit of shadow right there. All right, I think that's pretty good. Now I do have a white pen here. This is a Posca pen. You could also use a white gel pen. And I'm just going to do, you don't have to do this either, it's completely optional. I'm just going to add some little stippling dot highlights around the center here. You can add a little bit of, I'm going to do a little bit of highlight on the edges of the petals just to kind of help break them out from the ones underneath. So we put the shadow on the underneath petals, we're putting this highlight on the top. Of course, optional, you don't have to do this. You can do a little on the outer ones too if you want to. I think it's fun. I like to add a little white, but you don't have to. It's completely up to you. Don't forget to sign your name. You can do that with your black pen. You can do it with your white pen too if your background's really dark. Just depends on how you ended up coloring it. Oftentimes I just initial my my watercolor cards. And date it. Alright, so I'm just going to hit this real quick with the heat tool because for two things. I don't want to like smear my wet paint. That's a bummer, right? After you've worked so hard on a card or you've spent some time on it anyway. So it's going to dry the pen, it's going to dry the paint, and it's also going to make my tape easier to remove because I use cheap masking tape from the dollar store. Now you can buy the fancy tape at Jerry's Artarama. If you're going to, I suggest buying it there because it'll be cheaper than any other art store. But I use the cheap Dollar Tree stuff because it's not terribly sticky and it works great for me. And it's so cheap. I think that's also part of the teacher in me because sometimes you have to buy like 20 rolls of the stuff. And because you can't have 20 people sharing one roll of tape and expect to get a class taught. So that would just be my little tip right there. Of course, I don't leave this tape on my pictures for a long time. It's generally if I'm doing something in one session. If I'm going to spend a long time on a painting and I need it taped down for that duration, then I do use the artist tape and I do it at Jerry's. But there you have it. I really think this is cute. I totally would send this to somebody, and I just like how it has a little bit of a modern flair to it. Let me know what you think of this style of painting in the comments below. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these quick watercolor tutorials, and I thank you so very much for watching. You'll find links to all the supplies I used in the video description. Check out our sponsor, jerrysartarama.com, for the best prices on art supplies. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Happy crafting!